On November 6, 2016, the area between Ladispoli and Cesano, central Italy, was hit by a strong, rapidly moving, long-tracked F3 tornado. Hi, I'm Chris May, writer, producer, and host of This Day in Weather History, now in its second year from the Weather Network in Canada. Late autumn is tornado season in western, central, and southern Italy. I wonder how that goes exactly. This Day in Weather History. Without doubt, violent tornadoes are reported in Europe, and one of the areas to see the most is Italy. This may not have the tornado alley that the U.S. does, but then again, nowhere on Earth has a tornado alley like the U.S. does. Approximately 600 tornadoes per year are reported to the European Severe Storms Laboratory, and although this is only about half the number that is reported in the entire United States, the general rule with storms is as soon as it's deadly and damaging, it doesn't matter how many there were compared to other years or places on Earth. And in Italy, they are most common along their coastlines, and that's where our story begins. Ladispoli is a town in the metropolitan city of Rome, Lazio, in central Italy. It lies along the Mediterranean Sea and boasts some of the most visited tourist sites on Earth, including the Colosseum, Trevi Fountain, the Pantheon, and the Spanish Steps. Cesano is also a zone in Rome. It's a little more inland from Ladispoli, almost due east, and gets its name from the small medieval village of Cesano di Roma. The distance between coastal Ladispoli and the town of Cesano is only about 45 kilometers and can be easily driven in only about 40 minutes, as per Google Maps. I looked it up. So therefore, both areas enjoy the same seasonally warm sea surface temperatures right off the Mediterranean Sea. But a very moist air mass combined with deep troughs and strong jet streams provide strong winds aloft to produce very unstable environments. That's basic fundamentals no matter where in the world you are. This same setup will produce training cell convective lines and heavy flooding rainfall in Liguria and Tuscany, and also tend to produce tornadoes. And that's what happened here on November 6th, this day in weather history. Welcome to year 2 of this podcast. Right now, you're listening to the full version of today's story on your favorite podcast provider, but there's also the daily podcast video short. They're shot right here in my podcast recording studio, so you get that perspective, but oftentimes they will include visuals from that day's event from when it happened in weather history. So after listening to the full story, go check out the podcast video short on television or online anytime at theweathernetwork.com/weather history. This powerful and deadly twister was first reported in the coastal town of Ladispoli, where 2 floors of an 8-story building collapsed. Dozens of other buildings were damaged in Ladispoli, while it also closed local schools when the localized street flooding became a concern in Rome. Several homes had to be evacuated amid fears of gas leaks as well, but the worst damage was reported in Cesano, approximately 30 kilometers northwest of Rome, where the damage track was 41 kilometers long. The tornado killed at least 2 and injured dozens. A 25-year-old man was killed in the city of Ladispoli, the coastal town north of the capital, when a piece of wall collapsed and fell from a building, striking him on the head. While in Cesano, a 74-year-old man was reportedly crushed by a tree. Again, Italy is a region that sees more tornadoes than any other region in Western Europe, save perhaps Greece. They're a close second. Again, along the Mediterranean. And it lived up to its billing when a severe F3 rocked the coast on November 6th of 2016. This day in weather history. Hey, do you like the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. If you have an idea, go right now to wherever you're listening to me and rate us if you would, please. It's on a 5-star system, and we would love as many stars as you can afford. So rate us, but then also review us. This way we can always stay on top of how you'd like to see the show evolve. Then remember to subscribe to this podcast. Click the subscribe or follow button right there on the very same podcast homepage you're listening on. You'll be immediately reminded that the next day is ready to listen to, and you also have access to every episode in the archives. It dates back to June 1st of 2020, so there is a lot that we got to get caught up on this day in weather history. Tomorrow is November 7th, and a blizzard with hurricane force winds devastated the Great Lakes Basin in the Midwestern United States and Ontario, Canada, that wrapped up on November the 10th, but it started on November 7th of 1913. You won't want to miss tomorrow's because I'm telling you about it right now. It's the hurricane force blizzard of 1913 that lasted for 4 days and started on November 7th. It was on this day in weather history, and it's with me, your host, Chris May.